The Battle of the Bismarck Sea took place in the Southwest Pacific area during World War II when aircraft of the U.S. 5th Air Force and the Royal Australian Air Force attacked a Japanese convoy carrying troops to Lae, New Guinea. Most of the task force was destroyed, and Japanese troop losses were heavy. The Japanese convoy was a result of a Japanese Imperial General Headquarters decision in December 1942 to reinforce their position in the Southwest Pacific. A plan was devised to move some 6,900 troops from Rabaul directly to Lae. The plan was understood to be risky, because Allied air power in the area was strong, but it was decided to proceed because otherwise the troops would have to be landed a considerable distance away and march through inhospitable swamp, mountain and jungle terrain without roads before reaching their destination. On 28 February 1943, the convoy, comprising 8 destroyers and 8 troop transports with an escort of approximately 100 fighters, set out from Simpson Harbor in Rabaul. The Allies had detected preparations for the convoy, and naval codebreakers in Melbourne and Washington, D.C., had decrypted and translated messages indicating the convoy's intended destination and date of arrival. The Allied air forces had developed new techniques they hoped would improve the chances of successful air attack on ships. They detected and shadowed the convoy, which came under sustained air attack on 2–3 March 1943. Follow-up attacks by PT boats and aircraft were made on 4 March. All 8 transports and 4 of the escorting destroyers were sunk. Out of 6,900 troops who were badly needed in New Guinea, only about 1,200 made it to Lae. Another 2,700 were rescued by destroyers and submarines and returned to Rabaul. The Japanese made no further attempts to reinforce Lae by ship, greatly hindering their ultimately unsuccessful efforts to stop Allied offensives in New Guinea. Background: Allied offensives 6 months after Imperial Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941. The United States won a strategic victory at the Battle of Midway. Seizing the strategic initiative, the United States and its allies landed on Guadalcanal in the southern Solomon Islands in August 1942, beginning the Solomon Islands Campaign. The battle for Guadalcanal ended in victory for the Allies with the withdrawal of Japanese forces from the island in early February 1943. At the same time, Australian and American forces in New Guinea repulsed the Japanese land offensive along the Kokoda Track. Going on the offensive, the Allied forces captured Bunagona, destroying Japanese forces in that area. The ultimate goal of the Allied counter-offensives in New Guinea and the Solomons was to capture the main Japanese base at Rabaul on New Britain, later codified as Operation Cartwheel, and clear the way for the eventual reconquest of the Philippines. Japanese plans reviewing the progress of the Battle of Guadalcanal and the Battle of Bunagona in December 1942. The Japanese faced the prospect that neither could be held. Accordingly, Imperial General Headquarters decided to take steps to strengthen the Japanese position in the Southwest Pacific by sending Lieutenant General Dusei Aoki's 20th Division from Korea to Guadalcanal and Lieutenant General Heisuke Abe's 41st Division from China to Rabaul. Lieutenant General Hitoshi Imamura, the commander of the Japanese 8th Area Army at Rabaul, ordered Lieutenant General Hitozo Adachi's 18th Army to secure Madang, Wewak and Tuluvu in New Guinea. On 29 December, Adachi ordered the 102nd Infantry Regiment and other units under the command of Major General Toru Okaba, the commander of the infantry group of the 51st Division, to move from Rabaul to Lae and advance inland to capture War. Following the decision to evacuate Guadalcanal on 4 January, the Japanese switched priorities from the Solomon Islands to New Guinea, and it was decided to send the 20th and 41st Divisions to Wewak. On 5 January 1943, the convoy, which consisted of 5 destroyers and 5 troop transports carrying Okabe's force, set out for Lae from Rabaul. Forewarned by Ultra, United States Army Air Forces and Royal Australian Air Force aircraft spotted, shadowed and attacked the convoy, which was shielded by low clouds and Japanese fighters. The Allies claimed to have shot down 69 Japanese aircraft for the loss of 10 of their own, and RAF consolidated PBY Catalina sank the transport Nishio Maru. Although destroyers rescued 739 of the 1,100 troops on board, the ship took with it all of Okabe's medical supplies. Another transport, Myoko Maru, was so badly damaged at Lae by USAAF North American B-25 Mitchells that it had to be beached. Nonetheless, the convoy succeeded in reaching Lae on the 7th of January and landing its troops, but Okabe was defeated in the Battle of War. Most of the 20th Division was landed at Wewak from naval high-speed transports on the 19th of January 1943. The bulk of the 41st Division followed on the 12th of February. Amamura and Vice Admiral Gunichi Mikawa, the commander of the Southeast Area Fleet, developed a plan to move the command post of the headquarters of the Japanese 18th Army and the main body of the 51st Division from Rabaul to Lae on the 3rd of March, followed by moving the remainder of the 20th Division to Madang on the 10th of March. This plan was acknowledged to be risky because Allied air power in the area was strong. The 18th Army staff held war games that predicted losses of 4 out of 10 transports, and between 30 and 40 aircraft. They gave the operation only a 50-50 chance of success. On the other hand, if the troops were landed at Madang, they faced a march of more than 140 miles over inhospitable swamp, mountain and jungle terrain without roads. To augment the 3 naval and 2 army fighter groups in the area assigned to protect the convoy, the Imperial Japanese Navy temporarily detached 18 fighters from the aircraft carrier Zuiho's fighter group from Truk to Kavieng. Allied intelligence. The Allies soon began detecting signs of preparations for a new convoy. A Japanese float plane of the type normally used for anti-submarine patrols in advance of convoys was sighted on the 7th of February 1943. The Allied Air Force's Southwest Pacific Area Commander, Lieutenant General George Kenney, ordered an increase in reconnaissance patrols over Rabaul. On the 14th of February, aerial photographs were taken that showed 79 vessels in port, including 45 merchant ships and 6 transports. It was clear that another convoy was being prepared, but its destination was unknown. On the 16th of February, naval codebreakers in Melbourne and Washington, D.C., finished decrypting and translating a coded message revealing the Japanese intention to land convoys at Wewak, Madang and Lae. Subsequently, codebreakers decrypted a message from the Japanese 11th Air Fleet to the effect that destroyers and 6 transports would reach Lae about the 5th of March. Another report indicated that they would reach Lae by the 12th of March. On the 22nd of February, reconnaissance aircraft reported 59 merchant vessels in the harbour at Rabaul. Kenney read this ultra-intelligence in the office of the Supreme Allied Commander, Southwest Pacific Area, General Douglas MacArthur, on the 25th of February. The prospect of an additional 6,900 Japanese troops in the Lae area greatly disturbed MacArthur, as they might seriously affect his plans to capture and develop the area. Kenney wrote out orders, which were sent by courier, for Brigadier General Ennis Whitehead, the deputy commander of the 5th Air Force, and the commander of its advance echelon in New Guinea. Under the 5th Air Force's unusual command arrangements, Whitehead controlled the Allied Air Force's units of all types in New Guinea. This included the RAF units there, which were grouped as No. 9 Operational Group RAF, under the command of Air Commodore Joe Hewitt. Kenney informed Whitehead of the proposed convoy date, and warned him about the usual Japanese pre-convoy air attack. He also urged that flying hours be cut back so as to allow for a large strike on the convoy. and instructed him to move forward as many aircraft as possible so that they could be close to the nearby captured airfields around Dobodura, where they would not be subject to the vagaries of weather over the Owen Stanley Range. Kenny flew up to Port Moresby on the 26th of February, where he met with Whitehead. The two generals inspected fighter and bomber units in the area, and agreed to attack the Japanese convoy in the Vitiaz Strait. Kenny returned to Brisbane on the 28th of February. Allied tactics. In the Southwest Pacific, a conventional strategic bombing campaign was out of the question, as industrial targets in Japan were well beyond the range of even the largest strategic bombers operating from bases in Australia and New Guinea. Therefore, the primary mission of the Allied bomber force was interdiction of Japanese supply lines, especially the sea lanes. The results of the effort against the Japanese convoy in January were very disappointing. Some 416 sorties had been flown with only 2 ships sunk, and 3 damaged, so clearly, a change of tactics was in order. Group Captain Bill Goering, an RAF officer on Kenny's staff with considerable experience in air-sea operations, including a tour of duty in Europe, recommended that Japanese convoys be subjected to simultaneous attack from different altitudes and directions. Major Paul I. Pappy Gunn and his men at the 81st Depot Repair Squadron in Townsville, Queensland, modified some USAAF Douglas A-20 Havoc light bombers by installing 4 50-inch machine guns in their noses in September 1942. 2 450-gallon fuel tanks were added, giving the aircraft more range. An attempt was then made in December 1942 to create a longer-range attack aircraft by doing the same thing to a B-25 medium bomber to convert it to a commerce destroyer, but this proved to be somewhat more difficult. The resulting aircraft was nose-heavy despite added lead ballast in the tail, and the vibrations caused by firing the machine guns were enough to make rivets pop out of the skin of the aircraft. The tail guns and belly turrets were removed, the latter being of little use if the aircraft was flying low. The new tactic of having the B-25 Strafe ships would be tried in this battle. The Allied air forces also adopted other innovative tactics. In February 1942, the RAF began experimenting with skip bombing, an anti-shipping technique used by the British and Germans. Flying only a few dozen feet above the sea toward their targets, bombers would release their bombs which would then, ideally, ricochet across the surface of the water and explode at the side of the target ship, under it, or just over it. A similar technique was mast-height bombing, in which bombers would approach the target at low altitude, 200 to 500 feet. At about 265 to 275 miles per hour, and then drop down to mast height, 10 to 15 feet at about 600 yards from the target. They would release their bombs at around 300 yards, aiming directly at the side of the ship. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea would demonstrate that this was the more successful of the two tactics. The two techniques were not mutually exclusive. A bomber could drop 2 bombs, skipping the first and launching the second at mast height. Practice missions were carried out against the wreck of the SS Pruth, a liner that had run aground in 1923. The 5th Air Force had 2 heavy bomber groups. The 43rd Bombardment Group was equipped with about 55 Boeing B-17 Flying Fortresses. Most of these had seen hard war service over the previous 6 months and the availability rate was low. The recently arrived 90th Bombardment Group was equipped with consolidated B-24 Liberators, but they too had maintenance problems. There were 2 medium groups. The 38th Bombardment Group, equipped with B-25 Mitchells, and the 22nd Bombardment Group, equipped with Martin B-26 Marauders. But 2 of the former's 4 squadrons had been diverted to the South Pacific area, and the latter had taken so many losses that it had been withdrawn to Australia to be rebuilt. There was also a light group, the 3rd Attack Group, equipped with a mixture of Douglas A-20 Havocs and B-25 Mitchells. This group was not just short of aircraft, it was critically short of aircrew as well. To make up the numbers, the USAAF turned to the RAF for help. Australian aircrew were assigned to most of the group's aircraft, serving in every role except aircraft commander. In addition to the RAF aircrew with the USAAF squadrons, there were RAF units in the Port Moresby area. No. 30 Squadron on RAF, which had arrived in Port Moresby in September 1942, was equipped with the Bristol Bow fighter. Both the aircraft and the squadron proved adept at low-level attacks. Also in the Port Moresby area were the 35th and 49th Fighter Groups, both equipped with Bell P-400, Curtiss P-40 Warhawk and Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighters, but only the last were suitable for long-range escort missions.